Her blog went silent on May 10th, 2009. Her flowers were dying in the garden. Her dogs were barking with no one to feed them. And her husband had a very simple explanation for all of it. She left. No one believed him, but for years, that was all anyone had. Marsha Ellen Brantley was a writer. Not a famous one, not yet, but a real one. She belonged to a writers' group in Cleveland, Tennessee, that she herself had founded in 2007, a small gathering of women who shared pages and trusted each other with their drafts. They called themselves, half-jokingly, the Big Girl Panties Group. Marsha called it her lifeline. She was 50 years old when she disappeared. She had light brown hair and blue eyes and stood nearly 5 feet 10 inches. She had spent years working at Lee University as Director of Commuter Services, and those who worked alongside her described her as sharp, warm, and exceptionally good at her job. But by 2009, she'd left that position to write full-time, supported by an inheritance from her parents, the only two people, it seemed, who had anchored her world. Both of Marsha's parents died within weeks of each other in late 2000, both from cancer. The loss devastated her. Friends said she never fully recovered from it. She used part of the inheritance to bankroll a franchise handyman business for her husband. She used another part to simply survive the grief. She had placed second in Writer's Digest's short story competition, chosen from nearly 7,000 entries, with a piece called Dirty Little Secrets. She ran a personal blog called The Magpie's Nest. She volunteered at an animal shelter. She loved her 3 dogs the way some people love children. She was, by every account, someone whose presence was felt and whose absence would be noticed immediately. Except, as it turned out, it wasn't. Not for months. Marsha met Donnie Brantley in 1999 through an online dating site, a relatively new concept at the time. He was divorced, the father of a teenage daughter named Elise. He was a competitive cyclist, outdoorsy, seemingly grounded. They married on March 28, 2000, and moved into the Cleveland home that Marsha's parents had built for her. In the early years, the marriage appeared functional. Donnie launched a handyman franchise business, and Marsha poured significant money from her inheritance into supporting it. But by 2008 and 2009, the business was failing. According to investigators, the franchise was draining Marsha's inherited funds. The money her parents had left her, the thing that was supposed to secure her future, was disappearing. Those who knew Marsha noticed changes in her. At her final hair appointment in April 2009, her hairdresser Kelly DeLude, who had been cutting Marsha's hair since 2000, observed that she had lost a noticeable amount of weight and seemed to be struggling financially. Her compounding pharmacist, who had been managing her hormone replacement therapy since 2004, documented in chart notes dated May 1st, 2009, that Marsha had been off her hormones since April 12th and was experiencing, in the pharmacist's own underlined words, severe depression. In March 2009, she had told her writers' group she was so depressed she couldn't get off the couch. One of the members, Reggie J., said she sent the group a bitter email a few months before her disappearance, saying she would be missing for some time, with no further explanation. Reggie's first thought, she later said, was not that Marsha needed space. Her first thought was, did Donnie write that? Marsha's blog, The Magpie's Nest, was updated for the last time on May 10th, 2009. It was a cheerful entry, deceptively so. She wrote about going to see the new Star Trek film with Donnie the night before. The word "wow" was in the post, followed by an exclamation point. It read like the entry of someone who was doing fine. Her second to last post, from March 31st, 2009, their 9th wedding anniversary, was a tribute to Donnie. She called him someone she loved, more than I ever thought possible. She wrote about their life together with tenderness. The last time anyone outside the home heard Marsha's voice was May 27th, 2009, when she called her best friend Kim Shank in Ohio. Then silence. No more calls, no more blog posts, no emails, no contact of any kind with family, friends, or her writers' group. Her aunt, Medra Justice, lived in North Carolina. Her cousin Jana Wills lived in Illinois. Marsha had no siblings, no children. Her parents were gone. The people who might have noticed her absence first were scattered geographically, and the person who lived with her every day said she had simply left. Donnie told a neighbour who asked about the quiet house and the unattended dogs that Marsha had gone out west. He offered no other details. The flowers in the garden continued to die. The dogs continued to bark. And Donnie Brantley continued on with his life. That phone call on May 27th would be the last anyone heard from her. It was not the police who first raised the alarm about Marsha Brantley. It was not her family, scattered across state lines and unaware. It was not a neighbour or a co-worker or someone from her church. It was her hairdresser. Kelly DeLude had been cutting and colouring Marsha's hair for nearly a decade on a 6-week schedule without exception. When Marsha missed her appointment after April 2009 and did not reschedule, DeLude began calling. Marsha's phone went to voicemail. The number for Donnie's handyman business was disconnected. DeLude called the Cleveland Police Department. The response she received was dismissive. The officer she spoke with told her, in effect, that if Donnie said his wife had left him, then she had left him. DeLude was not a relative. There was nothing the department could do. She did not stop. While cutting the hair of a local attorney named Jerry Hoffer, DeLude mentioned the situation. Hoffer walked directly to the district attorney's office and said, plainly, "You've got a dead lady out there. You all need to be looking for her." DA investigator Walt Hunt interviewed Donnie Brantley. He later described Donnie as a little cooler than I might expect, from a man whose wife had supposedly abandoned him. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation was brought in. But despite the interview, and despite the growing unease among those who knew Marsha, the official missing person report was not filed until November 2009, nearly 6 months after she vanished. 6 months. The thought of it is difficult to sit with. While investigators were still in their earliest stages, Donnie Brantley had already begun moving on. Within hours of his first interview with DA investigator Walt Hunt, Donnie went to a pawn shop. He pawned Marsha's jewellery, her 14-carat gold cross, her Figaro necklace, her Figaro bracelet, her herringbone necklace. He also pawned her Toshiba laptop. On the morning of June 3rd, 2009, within roughly 24 hours of the last recorded activity on Marsha's cell phone, Donnie hand-delivered a greeting card to a woman named Stephanie Richardson, an ex-girlfriend. The card read, "Hi girl, things are better for me now. Call me if you can." He included his phone number. Phone records showed that Marsha's cell phone had, in the days after her disappearance, been used to dial the Chattanooga singles dating service. Marsha had not used it. The phone never travelled more than 2 miles from their home. On June 2nd, 2009, it went permanently silent. Donnie's story about his wife changed repeatedly. At various points he told people she'd gone to Florida, then that she'd gone out west to work as a missionary, then that she was camping in Townsend, Tennessee, then that she had moved away in a camper. Each story contradicted the last. None of them were true. At one point, he told investigators Marsha's car was parked at a local Walmart. The first time police checked, it wasn't there. The second time, it was. Walmart staff had never heard of her. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together, but the picture they formed was chilling. In November 2012, 3 years after Marsha vanished, a court transferred custody of the Brantley home to Marsha's family. Investigators and the family's attorney were finally able to examine it in detail. What they found was unsettling in its own quiet way. Every photograph of Marsha had been removed from the walls. Her remaining belongings had been stuffed into garbage bags. Her day planner, still inside the house, helped investigators pinpoint early June 2009 as the most likely date of her disappearance. Sections of the basement floor were dug up. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Nothing was found. No blood, no remains, no crime scene. No evidence that any violence had occurred on that property at all. But investigators did find something else. Receipts for duct tape, for plastic sheeting, for a torch and welder kit purchased near the time Marsha went missing. District Attorney Steve Crump would later describe these receipts as preparations for disposing of Marsha Brantley. The defense countered that Donnie ran a home repair business. The materials could have been work supplies. Also that year, Marsha's recreational vehicle, long missing, was discovered on land owned by Donnie's family. It had been concealed there. Donnie was charged with hindering a secured creditor. It was a small charge, but it confirmed what investigators had long suspected. Donnie Brantley was hiding things. In March 2010, Donnie Brantley voluntarily agreed to take a polygraph examination. According to Detective Zach Pike of the Bradley County Sheriff's Office, he failed it, and not narrowly. Pike described it later as failing flying colours. Investigators had by this point built a portrait of a man whose behaviour defied any innocent explanation. He had given shifting accounts of his wife's whereabouts. He had pawned her jewellery the same day he was first interviewed. He had reached out to an ex-girlfriend within 24 hours of Marsha's phone going silent. He had concealed her RV on his family's property. He had used her cell phone after she disappeared. And yet there was no body, no crime scene, no forensic evidence, no witness, no confession. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Bradley County Sheriff's Office continued working the case. In October 2011, the Sheriff's Office formally joined the investigation. Detective Pike later said there were many nights he had not slept, wondering where Marsha was. In 2013, a civil wrongful death suit was brought by Marsha's family. Donnie was deposed. Over the course of that deposition, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination more than 100 times. He could not recall, or would not answer, whether he had maintained extramarital relationships during the marriage. He would not answer whether his actions had anything to do with her disappearance. He said nothing that helped, and everything he refused to say spoke for itself. In July 2013, a Bradley County grand jury indicted Donnie Ray Brantley on one count of first-degree premeditated murder. He was arrested in August of that year when he appeared at the courthouse on the unrelated creditor charge. Bond was set at $500,000. Marsha's aunt, Medra Justice, told reporters she welcomed the charges. She said, "Donnie Brantley is going to pay for what he's done to her." Her cousin Jana Wills asked only for the family's grief to be acknowledged. "Our family has a hole there that can't be replaced, and we will do everything we can to find her, and we won't give up." But in May 2014, the charges were dismissed. The prosecutors and the family made the decision together. They feared they did not yet have enough for a conviction, and as one official noted, "You only get one shot." They wanted to be certain before they went to trial. DA Steve Crump, newly elected, assigned the case to a cold case unit and kept digging. In October 2016, Donnie, by then living in Cartersville, Georgia, was arrested by U.S. Marshals. He was re-indicted on December 13, 2016. Bond was set at $250,000. A trial date was set for February 5th, 2018. The family held on to hope. Medra Justice posted on Facebook in the days before trial, asking for prayers. She wrote that she had faith that Donnie would be found guilty, and that whatever the outcome, she wanted the truth to come forth. Her deepest wish was simply to find Marsha and put her to rest. And then, on the morning of February 5th, 2018, before a single witness took the stand, Crump moved to dismiss. The truth was about to come out, and it was worse than anyone imagined. Defense attorney Lee Davis had filed a memorandum raising a territorial jurisdiction challenge. Under Tennessee law, prosecutors must prove not only that a crime occurred, but that it occurred within the county bringing the charges. Davis argued they could not establish that Marsha had been killed in Bradley County. A recent adverse ruling in a neighboring county suggested that Judge Andrew Freiberg might grant a directed acquittal, the equivalent of a not guilty verdict, if the case reached trial without that proof. A directed acquittal under Tennessee's Rule 29 would mean no retrial, ever. Double jeopardy would attach. The case would be over permanently. Crump made the call. He stood before Judge Freiberg and said the words that had haunted this case from the beginning. In this unusual case, the state has no proof of a crime, no body, no crime scene, and no forensic evidence of any kind. There are no witnesses to a crime, no confessions. Judge Freiberg dismissed the charges without prejudice. He turned to Donnie Brantley and said, "You are free to go." Donnie stepped outside the courthouse and told reporters he was grateful for the dismissal. He said he looked forward to putting this difficult time behind him. Crump, for his part, was not finished. He told media directly, "He murdered her. And then, I've been very plain that we're not going to stop, and so whatever he feels, relief or whatever he may feel, I wouldn't get accustomed to it." Donnie's record of charges in Bradley County was subsequently expunged. His daughter Elise, who had stood by him throughout, said that she knew the inside of her father's heart, and that he would not hurt anyone. She said she had never even asked him if he killed Marsha, because she already knew he hadn't. The silence in the room, for the people who loved Marsha Brantley, was louder than any scream. Marsha Brantley's remains have never been recovered. There is no grave, no burial, no place where her family can stand and say goodbye. She was declared legally deceased in civil court. She is still listed in the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System as a missing person. Those two things are not contradictions. They are the shape of this case. Charges can be refiled if new evidence emerges. As of today, no third indictment has been filed. Everyone who loved her, her aunt, her cousin, her best friend, her hairdresser, the detectives who spent years on her case, believes she was killed by her husband. And they believe he has been free ever since. Detective Zach Pike said there were many nights he couldn't sleep, wondering where Marsha was. Kelly DeLude, the hairdresser who started all of this, said simply, "He's disposed of her body very well. I know that." The defense's position, argued by Lee Davis from the beginning, was that Marsha Brantley was a deeply depressed woman who may have taken $100,000 to $110,000 in cash from a stash in the attic and simply walked away from her life. Perhaps to disappear voluntarily. Perhaps to end it somewhere else. Quietly and alone. If you have any information about the disappearance of Marsha Brantley, the Bradley County Sheriff's Office tip line is 4-237-287-336. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation can be reached at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Marsha Brantley loved words. She believed stories had power. She believed the truth, if you told it clearly enough, could change things. Somewhere, her story is still waiting to be finished.